Hi guys, my name is Megan and today I have some wintry themed reads for you. Okay, so I got 3 young adult as well as 3 adult books that fit this kind of wintry theme. These books are all kind of like the first ones that popped into my head when I started thinking of what would be a really good like atmospheric-y type winter read that would be kind of like cool and or a chilly setting and like the perfect read for getting cozy in the winter. So of course the first one is going to be Harry Potter, because who doesn't love rereading Harry Potter in the middle of winter or watching the movies, especially in the winter, because you know that's kind of become like a tradition. I always love watching Harry Potter in winter and it's just kind of become like this seasonal favorite. I know there are Harry Potter marathons all the time on TV, but I especially love watching Harry Potter movies around Thanksgiving as well as Christmas because, you know, they're just so like attached to those seasons for me. It's just weird, but I love Harry Potter around winter and fall. Next up I have Shadow and Bone, because this book is kind of set in, so it's set in this country of Ravka, which is kind of very reminiscent of Russia, and it's very cold, and it's always, this one in particular, there's a lot of snow and like crawling through the mountains. This is just a very like atmospheric and dark kind of read, which is something that, you know, you want to like dig into. A nice fantasy novel in winter is usually how the way I feel. I love digging into any type of fantasy in the winter because it's just so like cozy, and it's just like this big blanket that you can just put on and just dive right into the wonderful world. And I do believe I have a review for this one now, or I will link it above. So next up is one that I feel like is a quintessential book that you need to read no matter what, but this one is a perfectly wonderful example of a winter like cozy time read, and that would be Six of Crows. So Six of Crows follows this gang of 6 thieves and outcasts as they go on this wonderful like heist adventure in the middle of winter to break into the like most impenetrable prison in their realm. And this is set in the same universe as Shadow and Bone, which, you know, is awesome. They're set in the same realm, probably a few years apart, but Six of Crows is definitely my favorite book from the Grisha universe. This book has a pretty heavy, like wintry atmosphere to it. It's just so like wonderful, and it's very like industrial revolution meets 1800s London meets a heist adventure with these awesome characters. And this is like a perfect winter read. It's just so atmospheric. You'll just want to cover up in a little blanket and just read this well into the night. So the next book on this list is going to be WebMage, which I have talked about this one before, but the reason this one is in this list in particular is because this particular book is set in the middle of winter, and it's just such a great atmosphere. And in this book, our main character Ravrin, he is descended from the Greek gods, so he is descended from one of the 3 sisters of fate, and so all of the children of the Greeks have magic, and in this book magic has kind of gone digital. It's gone a little more high-tech. So in this realm they have familiars, and those familiars goblins that turn into laptops or computers, which is really interesting and very different. And you know, this book still really holds up really well, even though it is kind of a little more, it's not quite outdated yet, but it definitely holds up really well because this book was written probably in the early 2000s. But this book has a really good like winter atmosphere. This is like a really cool blend of science fiction and fantasy, and it's just a really great read all around. It's also one of my absolute favorites. I think I've read this book 6 times, maybe more. I talk about it every time I bring it out, but the spine on this book is just torn to shreds, but that just shows you it's a loved book. But yeah, this one is definitely a really great read for winter if you're looking for something that's relatively short but full of like action and magic and just like science fiction adventures. This is one to go for. The next book on this list is going to be Cry Wolf. This is the first book in the Alpha and Omega series, which is a spin-off of the Mercy Thompson series, which is one of my all-time favorites. This is also a personal favorite. So this book follows Anna, and she didn't really know werewolves existed until she was attacked and turned into one, and then she was mistreated by her pack, and then the enforcer for the head werewolf of the entire world, or most of the world, stepped in and basically took care of her pack and, you know, rescued her from this abusive situation, and they figure out that they're supposed to be together. And this is a really great like atmospheric wintry type read. I believe in this first book, Anna and Charles, the enforcer, figure out that they can work together and use their skills to help each other deal with, you know, being a werewolf and stopping all of these crimes that are committed by werewolves, because that's basically Charles's job. He stops the werewolves from committing crimes and all sorts of fun stuff. I believe the setting for this is in the mountains mountains in Montana, which are always like snow covered and just really cool and like very wintry atmosphere, which is always something that I loved about this book. It's just so wintry and like you just want to snuggle up in a blanket and just read this book well into the midnight. This one is definitely a really good wintry read. And then the last book on this list is going to be A Darker Shade of Magic. So I couldn't picture this list without having this book on it. A Darker Shade of Magic follows Kel, and he has this weird power where he can travel between these different dimensions and all these different Londons specifically. So there are 3 Londons, so Red London with the abundance of magic, there is White London with a dying magical system, and Grey London that has almost 0 magic. And Kel and very few other people can actually switch between, or can actually travel between these Londons. And for this book, Kel kind of smuggles things back and forth, which he's not supposed to do, but he does it anyway until one day he gets caught with an object that he cannot get rid of, and it causes all sorts of mayhem. And, you know, he meets Miss Delilah Bard, who is the most awesomest character ever. She's a total badass. That's her up there. She's pretty awesome. And Kel brings Lila on his adventures with him. They get into so much shit, so much trouble, and it's ridiculous, but it's so funny. But the reason this book is on here in particular is because there's just like this wintry feel in this first book. It's very dark and dreary, and when Kel jumps back and forth between the different Londons, you can definitely get a feel of things being snowy kind of, and rainy and kind of dreary and like cold, but also really like, anyway, this one just has such a really great winter quality to it that I just couldn't picture a wintry reading recommendation without this book on it. And if you haven't read this book, you really should. And if you'd like to see my review for it, I will link them up above. I have reviews for all 3 books now, I think. But yeah, this is definitely one that I really have fallen in love with, and it just, I think I said it for all of these books, but most of these will make you want to just curl up in a blanket with a nice cup of tea or a cup of coffee and just read well into the night. Alright, so those are all of my winter reading recommendations for you. I hope you guys enjoyed them. So what are some of your guys' favorite wintry reads? Let me know down below. If you guys liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You can also hit the notification button. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, check out the links down below. Alrighty, bye guys!